Here we are with another lecture of mine on the Iliad, and here we would talk about the theme of war. Now, war over here is mostly represented as a norm, and hence it has been glorified. So there is no doubt about the fact that Homer glorifies war. But also it has been shown as a source of suffering. This is a remarkable feature because on the one hand you have glorification of war, where you have great war heroes like Achilles and Hector being portrayed as great warriors, great heroes, demigods. On the other hand, war is also shown as the originator of suffering. And war in Iliad is a complex entity, but it is accepted by the narrator and his characters and offered to us as a norm. So war is going to happen, definitely going to happen. It's a complex thing, but then it has to happen. And the participants feel no bitterness on its account. As Hector rebukes Paris for his misdeed, but more for inertia than for bringing war to Troy. So this is what Hector is saying to Paris in book 3 and 6, that well, he scolds Paris, but more the scolding goes more because of Paris's inertia, not to be part of war, but than to bring war to Troy. And then we have Priam and Hecate or Hecuba too. They may detest Achilles for his cruelty, but Priam's supplication seems still to imply Achilles' entitlement to kill so many of his sons. So this is how war gets justified all the time. It's a norm. And even Achilles in book 9 is not bitter about war itself, but rather about heroism. And gods too accept war. They relish the sight of men. And this, in the first instance, is the view of the ordinary soldiers on both sides, who, with few exceptions like Dolon in book 10 and Thersites in book 2, remain anonymous. And these are the ordinary men like us, who do not and cannot win Kleos Aphthiton, right? So that is glory. So they have a different side towards war. And the Trojans and Achaeans, who stood aside from Menelaus' duel with Paris and were glad because they hoped they had finished with wretched war. So this is the perspective that actually runs counter to the other perspective which glorifies war, right? And then, sensing a new turn of events, said to one another, evil war and the dread din of battle, here they come again. So they actually do not like war. So the soldiers, the ordinary soldiers, the common people, they do not like war. But heroes think that war is justified. So war is wretched and evil, and the battle din, dread, and these are all examples that you would find from the text. And the commoners say that Ares, the war god, is plague to man. He is hateful. And there is some formular phraseology on the heroic side, like into glorious battle, but the vocabulary of suffering predominates it overwhelmingly. And it's more surprising that this vocabulary is sometimes developed by the heroes themselves, like in book 13, Menelaus kills the Trojan Pisander, and as heroes are wont to do, exults over the corpse. But it is a strange exaltation that turns into a tirade against the other side. You took my wife, now you want to set fire to our ships and kill us all. Father Zeus, all this is your doing by showing favor to these Trojan criminals. Their prowess is evil, they cannot get enough of the din of war. A man can have too much of anything, sleep, love, singing and dancing, and any man would rather have too much of these than of war. But the Trojans cannot get enough fighting. In book 9, Achilles himself, the supreme fighter, articulates a version of this attitude. No, Agamemnon will not persuade me to fight. What thanks did I ever get for fighting? And then he says, the man who waits and the man who fights have the same fate. The coward and the brave man share the same honor. They both die, the man who does nothing and the one who does it all. Suffering forever, staking my life in war has got me nothing. As a bird brings her chicks all the bits and pieces she can find, though the going is hard for her. So I used to pass sleepless nights and battle my way through the bloody days, fighting men for their women. So here the tone of Achilles is noticeable. He is also not supporting war particularly. So the Iliad also depicts the suffering of the war heroes. In sixth book, Hector meets Andromache inside Troy. She asks him to stay inside the city for his and her safety, and she says, "Hector, you are my father, my lady mother, my brother, and my strong husband. Please have pity and stay here at the wall, or you will make your child an orphan and your wife a widow." This clearly shows that the perils of war are definitely the cause of suffering. The day will come when sacred Ilios is destroyed and Priam and the people of Priam, but it is not so much the pain of the Trojans in times to come that concerns me, nor even Hecabe's, nor King Priam's, nor the pain of my brothers, so many and so brave, who will be laid low in the dust by our enemies, but yours, when one of the bronze-mailed Achaeans leads you away in tears and takes away your day of freedom. And in Argos, it may be, you will weave at some other woman's loom. So you will be a prisoner, you will be a slave. That's what Hector replies. This pains me a lot. Or carry water from Messes or Hyperia against your will, for strong necessity will be laid upon you. And some man will watch you weep and say, "This is the wife of Hector, who was the best of the horse-taming Trojans when they fought around Troy." So someone will say, "And for you there will be new pain in your lack of a man like me to fend off the day of bondage." So this is how war becomes the source of suffering. Andromache is holding the baby Astyanax. As Hector finishes speaking, he reaches to his son, but the child is frightened by the sight of his father in his exotic helmet. The baby cries, his parents laugh. Hector gives the baby a kiss, holds him, and prays that his son may become like him, a mighty ruler of Ilios, so that one day when he comes home from war, someone may say of him, "This one is far braver than his father." May he kill his enemy and carry off the bloody spoils, and may his mother's heart be glad. So we see this juxtaposition of glory of war and the sorrow that war causes. The mother's heart is to share in the sense of glory, just as the warrior Hector shares in his wife's impending sorrow. The attitudes are larger than the individuals who represent them, but still balanced. So on the one hand we have the sorrow of war, on the other, the pity of war, according to Wilfred Owen. On the other hand, we have the glory of war. And this contrast between glory and suffering that informs Hector and Andromache scene pervades the poem, as in the necrologies, objects of passing interest, and the ekphrasis that we are going to talk about. The reference to the Trojan wash tanks that appear in the middle of Achilles-Hector battle, that also is an object of passing interest. And there are several objects of passing interest that would be found. Like here I have enumerated a few examples. As a falcon in the mountains, swiftest of the wings, swoopeth lightly after a trembling dove, she fleeth before him, and he hard at hand dareth. So here we are getting the description of Achilles-Hector battle. Achilles is chasing Hector, and there is a huge deviation, a detour from the main action. As you would read this, you would understand this. So you take the snapshot of this slide and please go through it. And if you have questions, definitely I would come back to this. A simile that offers a poignant sense of the ordinary rhythm and felicity of a world without war in overt comparison to the world of war itself. So here is the example. All morning while the holy day grew, that the spears of each side found the other, and the men fell. But at the hour of woodman takes his meal in the mountain glade, when his arms are tired cutting down the tall trees. So here again there is a deviation towards the common way of life from war, and this creates this contrast, the world of felicity, the world of rhythm, getting contrasted with the world of war. So here the deviations are very important in Homer. And then there is this famous necrology. Necrology means the notice of someone's death, usually includes a short biography. When an arrow from Teucros and Achaean misses Hector and hits Gorgythian, with these words he shot another arrow from the string straight at Hector, eager to hit him. Hector he missed, Gorgythian he hit in the chest with his arrow. Priam's brave son by a woman from Aesme, fair Castanera, lovely as one of the goddesses. This is from book 8. And then recitation of the victim's background, usually his family background, adds the necessary perspective to the winning and losing of glory in battle. So if someone dies, there would be a necrology, and that would definitely be a deviation from the usual warfare. And Gorgythian's necrology is completed by a simile of this kind. Priam's brave son dropped his head to one side like a poppy in a garden. So again, going away from war and giving a very natural image. Laden with fruit and the spring rain. Just so his head bowed, weighed down by his helmet. So this is how the representation of war becomes very, very complex, and that's why it's epic in nature, right? You have both the glorification of war, at the same time you have a denunciation of war, a kind of de-glorifying war. Fruit and spring, life and growth. The irony is definitely profound over here. So this is what is about war and the famous deviations that we can definitely connect with the theme of war. We would talk about the ekphrasis part in the next lecture of mine, okay, where we would discuss the shield of Achilles.